And now the current events update. Israel at war. Boy, if you don't know what's going on over there. Israel and Iran has now become Israel, Iran, and the United States. For better or for worse. This is the actual video that was posted of someone who lives near the Fordo nuclear facility in Iran. And this is what the explosion looks like. If you know anything about large explosions, if you're distant away, you don't hear it or feel it for a few seconds anyway. I was reading about a huge volcano in Alaska that took place early part of the 20th century, and on the other side of the ocean from where this was in Alaska over to the continental U.S., it was an hour later, and boom, everything shook, and they thought it was a local explosion, and it came from the volcano across the way in the ocean. But I just want you to see that again. Now, this huge energy, and you can see it destroyed the property where this guy was at. Evidently he survived, or he was doing that live stream. That's how we got the video. So I do want to say a couple of things about this before I move on. We aren't celebrating war. We're not, giddy about war. But Romans 13, 1-4 provides that God has ordained government to protect its citizens from the evil and the wicked. And Iran has been calling for the death of America and Israel since 1979, when the Ayatollah Khomeini and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard took over there in Iran. They had our hostages. Some of you are old enough to remember that. Ronald Reagan was elected, and then they released the hostages. But it was only a few years after that it was Iranian proxies who killed, I believe it was 84, or no, it was more than that. It was like a couple hundred of our Marines in Lebanon. Iran has known to have killed more than 1,000 Americans since that 1979 revolution, as they call it. But there's more than that. There's more than that. And I agree, just telling you the honest truth, I agree with not allowing Iran to get a nuclear weapon. 241 Marines were killed in Lebanon. That was 1984? 83. October 23rd, 1983. There you go, Jim has that etched in his mind. And so I am not calling for, supporting the idea of boots on the ground, another Iraq or anything like that. And I believe that our president is committed to avoiding that kind of thing. But I do believe this had to be done. And so you're free American, free to disagree with me, but I just think you should know where I stand on this. And I hope in the end that everybody who has been wailing and gnashing their teeth over the last month has to eat their words, because there are a lot of bad things said about Trump, a lot of bad things said about Israel, and a lot of lies and a lot of nonsense. So other than that, no change. But when it comes to the hostage situation, I took the slide out because they, just after Sunday school started, I got an alert where they informed or reported that 3 more bodies were recovered. And I couldn't find any explanation, but they dropped it. We had the last count at 50. They dropped it not to 47, but down to 43. So I'm waiting for more information of how it went from 50 to 43. That's what I-24 News and other news sources had that number. So we were just sharing that. So I'll figure it all out and let you know when I get some more information on that. But in the meantime, good news is that Hezbollah, which has been completely decimated prior to this, has refused to obey the Ayatollah's call to attack Israel. Hezbollah owes its existence to Iran, and yet they're saying, no way, we're not in this fight. So that's good. This was reported on I-24, and I like how they put it here. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem is terrified at the prospect of devastating Israeli reprisals, leaving Iran in dire straits. You see, I don't know if they planned it this way, but the fact that Hamas is decimated, Hezbollah decimated, ISIS decimated, it totally defanged Iran. And now that they have destroyed the nuclear capabilities of Iran, that's why Trump is saying, it's just, you might as well make peace, you got nothing else. Well, we do have a concern for sleeper agents here and in Europe, and not so much Israel, but surrounding Israel. But and you know, we mentioned the EMP, something that you ought to have plenty of backup sources for water and food, just in case. We're also concerned about the possibility Iran has a considerable, unit that works to hack our systems, to shut down our grid and disrupt the banking system. Now, the people I've listened to said it would be a short-term thing. We'd be able to get all that back up on if it was a hack. But still, for a few days, you may go without. You might not have electricity. You might not have access to your money. And so that's why we just say, whether it's this or a tornado or whatever, flood, you should be prepared to go a few days, with water and food and anything, medicines, anything else. Always be prepared so that you can get through, say, 3 to 5 days minimum, a week, 2 weeks, even better, according to what you can do. The Ayatollah wants to make sure that after he goes to hell, the Islamic death cult continues. So this came out before the attacks of the nuclear facilities, that he had lined up 3 successors. And so it's actually wise, but it should have been already in place. Our Constitution says that if our president dies, the vice president steps up. If both of them somehow are taken out, the Speaker of the House steps up, and then there's a whole train behind that. So, and that's why when the president gives the speech, like the, what do they call it, the State of the Union, they have somebody in an undisclosed location, just in case somebody was able to blow the place up, we'd have somebody to take over. Not funny, but something we don't talk about or think about much. So the issue is a death cult that demands conversion or death. That's the issue. It's not just Iran. It's Islam. It's anyone who believes the teachings of Muhammad. Period. If someone tells you, I'm a Muslim and I don't believe in jihad, I don't believe in taking over the world and setting up a global caliphate and all that, they're either a liar practicing taqiyya, which is Islamic doctrine, to deceive you, or they're like the typical Roman Catholic today. Roman Catholic doesn't know what their church teaches. When you tell them what the church teaches, like, they don't teach that. Like, yeah, they do. You try to explain to them. Well, there's a lot of Muslims like that too. There's other Muslim offshoots. Dr. Oz is just an obvious example. He's a part of the Sufi religion, which is Islamic historically, but it's not Islam. And so there's that exception to it as well. But this is an FBI agent named John Guandolo who explains this for us in less than 3 minutes.
The entire purpose of Islam, according to all Islamic doctrine, is to ensure that there is an Islamic state throughout the entire world called a caliphate, and under that, Sharia or Islamic law is the law of the land. That's it. Islam is no more complicated than that. Islam breaks the entire world into 2 parts. The Dar al-Islam, where Sharia is the law of the land, and the Dar al-Harb, the house or abode of war, where there is not Sharia as the law of the land. The function of Islam is to eliminate the Dar al-Harb until the entire world is a Dar al-Islam. And the vehicle to do that is called what? Jihad, which in 100% of all published Islamic law is only defined as warfare against non-Muslims. So let's just put that on the line. And so we're here talking national security issues. We have people here that are running for the office of President of the United States, and we have to begin there. And what I would put forth is that since, and actually prior to, but since 9/11, our entire national security apparatus has been unprofessional in its approach to this war, from the four-star generals to the office of the president, to the national security staff, to the leaders of DHS when it was created, the FBI, the CIA, and other agencies. Because we have said this has nothing to do with Islam, despite the fact that our warfighting doctrine says when you analyze an enemy, you start with who he says he is and why he's fighting. And 100% of this enemy that we're facing, from the jihadi in Chattanooga to the 9/11 hijackers and everybody before and in between, have all said we're Muslims waging jihad in the cause of Allah in order to impose Islamic law and establish caliphate, period. So that's what it is. And if we look in Islamic law, authoritative Islamic law, the kind you get at mosque bookstores, not at Barnes & Noble, you will see that 100% of them say that jihad is warfare against non-Muslims. And it's total warfare. It's not just guns and bombs. It's psychological warfare. It is political warfare. It's subversion. It is the whole 9 yards. It's total warfare, something that our DOD has not been practicing. I would say you'd have to go back towards Reagan administration and maybe even beyond that. Complete and total war against non-Muslim.
So you won't hear that on hardly any of the secular programs because they're unsaved people talking to you. And unsaved people don't have discernment. They lack wisdom. And most Americans say, oh, we have the freedom of religion in this country. When that was established, it was with the idea that it would be a Judeo-Christian religion. Go read some of the founders and what they said about Islam. Islam isn't a religion, it's a political cult. Big difference. Amen. And anybody who thinks you should give the same freedoms to Islam that you give to the Presbyterians, they're a fool. Amen. And the Islamic, the Presbyterians aren't going to kill you if you don't convert, and they're not going to try to take over your country and so forth. And that's the difference. It's one of what he's explaining there. And just want to mention one thing I didn't put in here because I just saw it a little while ago. But Russia strongly condemned the United States attacks on Iran's nuclear sites. I mean, this is what you call rich. Listen to this. Quote, this is the Russian statement. The irresponsible decision to subject the territory of a sovereign state to missile and bomb attacks, whatever the arguments it may be presented with, flagrantly violates international law, the Charter of the UN, and the resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, end quote. The guy who bombed Ukraine with missiles and drones and has invaded that country is going to lecture the United States for what it did in Iraq. It's just hilarious. You talk about lacking self-awareness. That's an example of it. Real quick, a couple other headlines because the rest of the world keeps going. Let's woke Krogering. You ever do that? Go woke, go broke. They just announced they're going to close 60 stores over the next 18 months, and they're trying to play it off like it's just business as usual. Kroger is attempting to play it down, but the fact is, Kroger has made significant efforts. This is a statement from a secular source. to promote inclusion and diversity through its framework for action. That's their words. They've come up with this whole program. It's DEI. The plan includes 5 focus areas: create more inclusive culture, develop diverse talent, advance diverse partnerships, advance equitable communities, and deeply listen and report progress. Kroger aims to create a more inclusive culture by forming a DE&I advisory council to advance its long-term commitments, which will report to senior leadership. The company also plans to provide unconscious bias training. If you work for Kroger, you have to get brainwashed. And as recently as March of this year, this is still on their website, but they're boasting about their DEI rewards or awards that they have gotten for promoting this bigoted, Marxist idea. That's all it is. It should be, you do the job, you keep your job. You're the most qualified for the job, you get the job, and if you do the job, you keep the job. That's it. And I could save them so much money because they could get rid of all these human resource people.
Yeah, amen.
And I don't care if everybody in there turned out to be a gay minority. First of all, I don't care about your sex life. Don't tell me whether you're gay or not. Second of all, I don't care about your skin color. You best qualified, you get the job, you do the job, you keep the job.
Amen.
That's what, you want to go back to Martin Luther King Jr., that's what he preached.
Yeah.
These hypocrites, they use him as their model, supposedly, but they ignore his words.
Yeah. Amen.
And a word about bad parenting. Adults who let children choose their gender are brain-dead, wicked child abusers. And Andy Griffith will explain here.
When our children tell
That's
us
not Andy,
who
but-
they are, it is our job as grown-ups to listen and to believe them.
No, I'm afraid it don't work that way. You can't let a young'un decide for himself. He'll grab at the first flashy thing with shiny ribbons on it. Then when he finds out there's a hook in it, it's too late. Wrong ideas come packaged with so much glitter, it's hard to convince them that other things might be better in the long run. And all a parent can do is say, wait, trust me, and try to keep temptation away.
Amen. Think how crazy that is, that their whole point is that if a 6-year-old boy says he wants to wear a dress and be a girl, oh, okay. What a nut. And I'm not talking about the kid. It's normal for kids to, be like that. It's normal. Anyway, I've told you the story. I came down, walking downstairs they had a Halloween dress-up thing at school. My sister dressed me up as a girl because I was kind of like, Mr. Jock and everything. So I thought it'd be funny if I showed up looking like a girl. I came downstairs, Dad's sitting at the kitchen table. He looks at me and says, you get upstairs and take that stuff off right now. I was like, it's just a joke. He said, I don't think it's funny. Get upstairs and take it off. My dad watched MASH. He knew all about Klinger. Is climate change due to emissions responsible for record-breaking temps? That's the question. They want to sell you this idea that emissions are causing greenhouse gases, which is causing the temperatures to be record highs and so forth. The fact is, we're used to seeing these headlines. This is Channel 10, climate change making hot days more likely in Central Ohio. Channel 4, getting worse faster. Greenhouse gases are accelerating. Here's another one. Scientists warn that greenhouse gas accumulation is accelerating and more extreme weather will come and all that. It's hogwash. That's not science. That's science falsely so called. That is not scientific. There's no science to back that up. The science backs up this, and these news organizations won't tell you this. It's the clouds, stupid. That's not my words. That's from I'm quoting this guy, Steve Malloy. He's a climatologist or something like that. I've been telling people for 19 years that clouds matter to climate and emissions don't. He gives references that you can look up, and if you guys want to, I can share it with you. Clouds are what made 2022 Nobel Physics Prize winner become a climate realist. When people study the facts of science and they see that the problem is rapid cloud loss is what is contributing to record-breaking temperatures. And there are various things at play when it comes to this change in the amount of clouds in the air, and we don't have time to get into all that. But I just wanted to tip you off on that. And also, there's this big, huge thing in the sky called the sun. And the sun has more to do with our climate and the clouds, by the way, than anything else. There's your hint as you continue to research this. But here's just a little anecdotal information for your consideration. If the oceans were rising and we were about to lose oceanfront property, why do these people live here? Why did John Kerry and Barack Obama build multi-million-dollar mansions on the ocean if the ocean is about to rise and destroy those properties? I'll tell you why. Because they and every other politician, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Socialist, Green Party, doesn't matter. If a politician is preaching climate change to you, there's a buck in it. Amen. That's what's behind it. And they tell us to rent apartments instead of own buildings. Take public transportation instead of having your own car. Own nothing and like it. Hypocrites don't practice what they preach. And finally, a word about consequences of your choices. How it started. Kate Mulvey wrote, "Why I'm disinviting my unvaccinated friends from my dinner parties. If you won't have the vaccine, you're no friend of mine." This is her quote. "I feel increasingly angry at those who refuse to be vaxxed." Okay, hey, just for the record, you want a vaccine. I believe in freedom. But she doesn't. And if you won't get the vax, you can't be her friend. Good. Several years later. How's it going? "I'm a single woman of 63 and I feel friendless and lonely." Same woman wrote both pieces separated by several years. It's not karma, that's baloney. I'm sorry, I don't mean to embarrass you, but don't quote the world on that karma thing. I've explained it before. It's reaping what you sow is what the Bible teaches. Karma is about how you turn out in your next life. There's no such thing. That's reincarnation. It's false teaching. So it's not karma. It is reaping what you sow. And that's what she sowed, and that's what she reaped. Amen? Amen. All right. Be informed. Pray and act accordingly.